content is king. I don't
Yep.
believe that you can produce too much content because there's all these filters and things like that. And if you put enough out there, more people will see it. Welcome to Matt Laricy Project. This is a show about all things real estate, business, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Each show consists of myself, Matt Laricy, and a guest. This week is Season 3, Episode 6, The High-Rise Market. And today we have none other than Melissa Siegal with the now national at Properties. Melissa, how are we doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
So Melissa and I have known each other for what? How many years? 3 years? 4 years? 5? 7?
Maybe 6, 7, 8.
I don't know.
I've been doing this 12. So.
So I was about to ask you, how long you been doing it? 12 years.
12 years.
Did you start downtown Chicago?
I did. I've
Okay.
always been downtown Chicago. I grew up in the suburbs, but I've always been
Southwest
selling
suburbs,
downtown.
right?
No.
Okay.
North Shore.
North Shore. Okay. So she grew up in the North Shore and you live in River North now.
Yes.
And you sell, obviously, all over downtown, some suburbs, but you mostly kind of do like River North, Streeterville, the high-rise market is a big portion of your business, right?
Yeah.
So, today one of the things I want to talk about is that, and with you having such a, because I do get Melissa's mailers in my inbox from the homes I own, and it's, she says that she's a high-rise specialist, right?
I am.
Okay, so, there's a big thing going on right now that people are gravitating towards away from high-rises, and a lot of people think people will never live in high-rises again. I personally think it's a knee-jerk reaction, prisoner of the moment type of society that we live in today. But, we want to bring another expert's opinion on because it's, I can't always just say what my opinion is to get some different points of view. And what we're going to do is just, we came up with a lot of different questions and we're going to just kind of see what your thoughts are on that. How do you feel about this?
Sounds good.
So what kind of buildings, do you think buildings are kind of easing up on like any restrictions? Like, a lot of times buildings have like these big pet weight limits or, just certain, rental rules and things of the nature. Are you seeing buildings kind of flip-flop on that now that, people aren't gravitating towards them as much?
Not at all. No one's changed any of the rules. They've all stayed the same.
I personally think they've gotten stricter.
I totally agree with you on that.
And it's because people are there more. And I think especially certain, maybe the older clientele is kind of complaining more. So I get more notices personally in my inbox from the high rises that I own of people like complaining about like make sure you follow the rules.
Yeah, for sure. We just got a letter in our building that you'll get a $500 fine for no mask. So
Masks are a
definitely
big one.
implementing the rules a lot more now.
Yeah, I mean the mask rule for high rises for everybody out there. When we do showings, I have had some clients who come from the burbs or from like a state that doesn't really use masks. And they start walking in the building without the mask, and then we have to go find them one. Has that happened to you?
No, so far everybody's had one, but we
Okay.
do have masks on hand.
Okay.
We made Melissa Siegal group masks.
Branding masks. See, there we go. What about buildings with showing restrictions during COVID? Like, how were you able to like handle that? Because a lot of buildings weren't allowing people to show.
Yeah, we didn't have too many listings with that issue, but we did have one, and we were actually under contract on the property before COVID.
Nice.
And then the buyer, it was like the week of COVID that the shelter in place happened, and
SIP.
they canceled the deal.
Nice.
So then we went back on the market and we couldn't show for 3 months.
Did you end up selling it?
Not yet.
Still on the
Do
market?
you have a buyer for me?
I mean, maybe it's possible. So like talking about that, like what can help, like what can sellers do in high rises to help make their units stand out with, because there is a lot of inventory in high rises right now.
So I would say you have to price it really well. I mean, if you're not priced well, there's really no reason to be on the market.
Right.
I think staging is a big thing for sure. And then just making sure that it's show ready all the time and you're ready to show. And, anytime somebody wants to come in, it's great to be able to have showings right now, especially in the downtown area.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of crazy. I think that we do get a lot of last minute showings. I mean, I get a lot of like 2-hour notice showings. And, my sellers get frustrated, but like I say, I'm sure you do the same thing. Like, listen, we haven't had a showing in a month. So like,
Exactly.
I mean, you never know. It only takes one person to come in there.
I'll be talking to my sellers and it'll be Thursday and we'll have no showing requests.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will be Saturday morning and 5 showing requests will come in.
Well,
I don't know why there's so many last minute ones lately.
So I always tell people that the fall market showings come in waves, that we won't have showings for 2 weeks. And then on a random Tuesday, we'll get like 4 requests for 1 o'clock. And like, how does that happen? I don't know. One of the main reasons why I drink wine every night, guys, is because sometimes there's no logistical sense to how the real estate market works. And with that being said, what about like amenities? So amenities are kind of restricted these days, whether, one person in the gym or, nobody could use the pool or stuff like that. Like, why would somebody want to live in a high rise if they can't use the amenities?
I mean, I think, amenities are always a nice thing for people and buyers, but I don't ever think it's like a huge, huge selling point for a buyer specifically.
I agree.
So I think people are okay with kind of what's going on with the rules and not being able to use them. But most buildings have now implemented like, make a reservation, use the gym, or, party room with like a limit of how many people. Or, the rooftop decks, you can have 50 people out there. So things have kind of loosened up now since this all started.
And I keep saying this, and I'll say it again, and I know I offend some people when I say it, but we're not going to be living in caves for the rest of our life. Eventually, these amenities will be able to be full swing and open again, right?
Absolutely. I would think so.
I would also like to think so. What about rentals? Do you see a lot of sellers flipping to rentals that you have on the market right now?
So all my sellers are asking me about that, but unfortunately, we're kind of seeing the same slowdown downtown in rentals too. I think a lot of the renters who are currently renting, they either are taking advantage of the low interest rates and going into buyers, or they're staying put. I mean, they're not going to go move right now to find a new rental. So rentals have been pretty slow downtown too.
Yeah, I mean, I keep telling people that a lot of the times what you used to see in the past is that after Labor Day, people would flip from sales to rentals, and then they would rent out in like a day. And I don't do rentals. Mickey, my team, does it. So I was yelling because I'm like, what the hell? You just took another listing from me, But, the problem is that I think the rental market is actually worse than the sales market. And like she said, a lot of people are staying put, or I'm seeing a lot of, especially like younger ones for the first-time buyers, are moving back home with their parents for the winter to be able to buy in the spring to kind of see like how this shakes out. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. What about units with balconies? Do you think properties with balconies are selling faster than units without balconies?
Honestly, we just put a listing on without a balcony, and that's been the complaint for the past 2 showings that we had. But the listing that we just sold together, didn't have a balcony. The buyer was excited about it, loved it, and sold it. So, as long as the building has a rooftop deck, I think we're okay.
Yeah, that was a listing that I also went on the listing appointment for that I lost to Melissa.
Oh, I'm sorry,
that
Matt.
She did get, but I did sell it. So
he did.
I do have my own unit on the market, and it's been on forever, and there's no balcony, and people hate that about it. But I will tell everybody out there, for everybody that wants a balcony, every unit I've ever had, there are these things called balloon spiders in Chicago that pretty much overtake your balcony, and I hate going out in the balcony because I'm like a 2-year-old little boy or girl, and I get afraid of spiders. So, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, my husband is always out there spraying, cleaning our balcony because those spiders are
Is he
always
afraid of the
out
spiders?
There. He's not.
Oh my! See, I'll lock my wife out there to clean them up.
One time we left the door open and there were spiders all over our ceiling. So, balconies are great, but if you don't like spiders, I would go for no balcony.
I mean, that's exactly why I bought my last place without one. So. What about like HOA? So assessments are higher in high rises. A lot of people think it's because of the amenities. Technically, honestly, it's not because of it, but that's a different story. But do you see people getting reductions in HOAs because of that?
No, that would be nice though. Like 50% off assessments till COVID's over. No, unfortunately not. We're actually seeing buildings with special assessments and all that happening now. So no.
Yeah, we're actually seeing. And just elaborate a little bit for a lot of people out there, because it's actually a big question I get from a lot of my clients personally too, is that, the building still has to be maintained. So although you may not be able to use the gym, your HOA cost towards a gym is almost nothing, but they still have to go in there and clean it. So, most of your HOA costs are going towards, insurance, your staff, and your staff is still there. And the engineers are probably working overtime right now because more people are home to clean and stuff like that. So if anything, like, you probably expect your assessments to go up rather than down because the staff is always going to be your biggest cost.
Yeah, I mean, the janitors on site are cleaning the gyms in between every person using it. So, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if they did go up because the hours are more.
So speaking of that, like, what about like older buildings versus newer buildings? Are you seeing older buildings kind of sell, slower than newer buildings?
I'm seeing, the older buildings with a larger square footage actually selling faster than some of my high-rise luxury units that are, newer down here because there's a lot of deals to be had with like, the 3,000 square foot units for 1.2 as opposed to 2,500 square foot in a newer building for 1.2.
Yeah, I mean, I put my foot in my mouth the other day. A client of mine wanted to see a co-op. I'm like, nobody wants to buy co-ops. And he's like, yeah, but for $1 million, I get like 3,500 square feet.
Exactly.
I'm like, it'll never sell. And literally the next day it sold. My client sent to me, and he's like, I thought you said this would never sell. And I'm like, I literally just put the picture of a foot in my mouth. So you're right though.
It's the deals right
big
now
square
that people want.
Yeah, people, and that's a big thing right now. And kind of what I was going to get to is like, are you seeing better deals happen because of inventory right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the properties that are priced well and that seem to be like a really good deal, price per square foot, are selling really quickly.
Price per square foot. That's a big one. Do you value a lot of stuff price per square foot in Chicago?
It depends. I think you have to really focus on every building kind of as like a neighborhood, and you can't really take like an overall square footage for the area.
Don't you wish that we could do I think saying price per square foot sounds so much cooler, but because nobody measures square footage the right way, we can't like really do it. Which
Well,
drives
that's
me
the
crazy.
problem. The appraisals, like the appraisers measure
Like
your building, but then they take
Melissa
whatever
walks
the
in
MLS
and says it's 2,500. And then the developer said it was like 13. So it's like, what is it really? So what about like, are people finding these bigger units to live in for more space? Do you think a lot of your clients are looking for like the work from home spaces? Are you hearing a lot of clients be like, oh, I need an office space?
a lot of my clients are moving to the suburbs, so they're not really moving within their building to get bigger space, but they're moving to the suburbs for more outdoor space, extra space for their kids in the basement in the winter times and that type of thing.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. That's why high rises are kind of struggling, because you are having this. Now, I do want to tell everybody out there that has this mentality, because again, I do think we're a big prisoner of the moment type of society these days. I'm going to be very interested to see like like your clients that like are in that in between, like they just got married and they want to have kids but not for a while. So those are normally by like a nice place downtown, but now you're seeing a lot of those move to the burbs, right?
Yeah.
So like what I think is gonna be interesting is like in March when people are working in the city again, and they're like, hey, it's not a big deal because I can make it downtown in 20 minutes. I'm like, yeah, today. But like when there's traffic, it's like a 2-hour car ride. Like, oh, it won't be that bad. I want to talk to them in like June, after like 4 months of commuting back to the city without kids in the burbs, and being like, how's eating at Applebee's and that 2-hour commute every day, right?
That's the thing. It's like everybody's like seeing the COVID traffic and they're like, oh, you can get back and forth from the city in
Right.
20 minutes, and
Right.
you can't.
Right.
But yeah, no, I actually had a client who bought a younger a couple that they just got married. They bought a place in Humboldt Park, and they right at the beginning of COVID or a few months before, and then now they want to sell and move to the suburbs.
Yeah,
And they're kind of those in between clients, but
Yeah.
they're ready for the burbs now.
I mean, I have a lot of clients who have actually already moved to the burbs and are already talking to me about like maybe getting an in-town unit, because there's like really not like there's no restaurants out there or anything. And they're like, we're like super bored already. I'm like, well, just wait, because
Just
like
wait till
well,
January. and
well, I keep
February.
saying like, what about the FOMO? Like we had a lot of clients that in when SIP was announced that just decided like, listen, we're gonna go to the burbs, right? And then also when the patio season opened up, and I think God bless their restaurants for like how well they did, but like they went downtown for like, went and ate at a restaurant, like shit, like this looks so nice. And they're like, we were just touring the burbs, and they called me and they're like, it was like so depressing out there. But then I came here and there was like all these people and stuff. So I think when the big cities open back up again, I think we're going to see a lot of FOMO from these buyers who bought in the burbs.
Then hopefully that's how the city is going to come back. Everyone's going to be buying back their places.
There was an interesting stat that came out the other day about like how after 9/11, New York City was crushed. And right now sales in New York City are down about 67% in certain areas. And I think it's going to be very interesting when cities like them, us, San Francisco, and things like that open up to see what does the migration pattern look like for people coming back to these high rises. Because right now the high rise market's struggling, but do you really think it's going to be struggling once everything's open again, civil unrest is done and all that stuff? Do you think, because right now the general press is telling you that nobody ever wants to live in a high rise again. Do you agree with that?
No, not at all. I think it's going to come back. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and then everyone's going to see how amazing the city is once things open back up. The civil unrest is already, starting to die down. So we're already starting to see, more people wanting to buy and stay in the city.
Yeah. What about parking? Like a lot of people aren't driving to work anymore, or maybe commuting. Do you have a lot of people more like making offers in high rises without parking? Because generally for everybody out there, like if you have parking in Chicago, I call it like a Bush League stat. Like I always say that like realtors want to make things look sexier. So what's sexier? Something that's cheaper. So if it's 400,000 and we have parking, we'll say like 35 extra in certain areas of the city. Do you see a lot of people being like, hey, I don't want to buy parking?
Yeah, they'll mention it, but then, they'll end up just making an offer for 400,000, including the parking spot.
Yeah. What about like riding an elevator? So during peak times of COVID, were you nervous to get on an elevator with somebody else?
Yeah, personally at the beginning I was, but now, with a mask, I feel totally comfortable. And I'd say for the most part, everybody's pretty good about it. Wearing a mask, if you have a mask on, you're good.
Do you touch the button, or do you?
I don't. I have one of those special keys.
Come on, do you?
I do.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Here's the thing. The problem is like, I will tell you, you probably see this. Like you'll get like 4 people get on the elevator, like you, 2 clients and a listing agent, and everybody gets on and like the door's shut. And like you see everybody kind of eyeing the button, but nobody wants to touch the button. That's the main thing I saw. And I'm always like, oh, here, I'll touch it. I don't care.
I was
you know?
always the one to wait for everyone else to touch it.
But here's the thing. Like the minute after I touch it, because I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't really care. I'm just like touching all the shit. Everybody then kind of like looked at me, and then like 90% of the time my client's like, oh, here's some hand sanitizer. And I'm like, did something happen to my face all of a sudden that are all of a sudden so nervous about this?
They were.
I mean, I thought it was pretty crazy, but that's just interesting to see. What about like, are there better buildings, like better high rises out there right now that are performing better than others?
I wouldn't say specifically. No, I would say
like something that's selling faster, maybe, where you're like, oh, no matter what, even this market, this unit building will sell.
Unfortunately, no. I wish there was, but right now I think it's pretty much overall the same.
I think there's one.
Which one?
9 Walton.
9 Walton.
I think if you get a decent price 9 Walton
sell.
property, somebody will still buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you're talking like the high end, ultra luxury, if somebody wants to buy a $4 million condo, they're going to buy a $4 million condo.
I feel like that building's just untouchable, but minus that, like I feel like every building is doing just as shitty, if not shittier than the other.
Totally.
It's like a race to the bottom in some of these.
Yeah.
And the problem that we're seeing with a lot of these high rises is, generally speaking, you would say like you go on a listing appointment, they'd be like, this tier hasn't come on the market in 4 years. And you're as an agent, like excited, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like, yeah, this is sick. I love it. You get all your paperwork, you get everything done with. You're about to go on the market, and all of a sudden, like, boom, you're like, wait a second. That's the same tier that just came on the market that I'm about to list. And then you like refresh it, and then there's 3 more that just hit. And you're like, okay, well, there hasn't been this tier on the market in 4 years. Now there's 6 of them.
Yep. Inventory is going up in these downtown condos. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's a little frustrating for us too, because as agents, like there's only so much we could do. I mean, I get it. Our job is to sell it, but like when you do have that much competition, it does make it for a little bit more pressure. Now, unfortunately, well, I should say, fortunately, Melissa's pregnant again, so you don't get to drink off the sorrows.
No
so
wine nights for me.
What do you do to alleviate all the stress then?
I started making sure that I did 10,000 steps a day. So even at night, if I am not at the 10,000 steps, I'm walking around.
Just around the neighborhood.
Yeah, around the neighborhood, doing my 10,000 steps.
See, there you go. You found yourself a de-stressing situation.
I did.
What about the investor market? Are you seeing the investor market pick up because of all the opportunity with the inventory?
Honestly, I haven't yet. And I think that potentially could be because, the rentals, there's not as many people wanting to rent. So it's like if they're buying it for investments, they're not finding the renters. I do have clients though who are investing in like single family homes and that type of thing. Like there's, good deals to be had in some of these neighborhoods, and they're buying them to flip them. Yeah.
I mean, the 3 to 6 unit market, I think, is still like super hot, but the high rise investors, see, there's 3 big types of high-rise investors. You get the international investors, right? And they can't come to the country, so they're not investing.
Right.
You get the, out-of-state investors where they want to have like a notch in their belt. Where like, I got a place in New York, San Francisco. Like those guys aren't doing it. And then you get just like your normal like guys, or just like guys or girls. They're like, hey, I want to buy like another place as an investment property, and like that's like really your only market, right? I'm sure there's other ones out there. I'm saying these are 3 main ones. So like it's just not a big of a pool for people, The
other problem is most of the buildings have rental cap. So
that's correct,
and they've been met, or they're being met because, if people can't sell, they're trying to at least rent their place.
Yeah. Who do you think is the main type of buyer that's still buying in these high rises with this inventory?
I think it's a younger buyer, somebody who's just, maybe moving down to the city for a new job, that type of thing right now. Or, just like empty nesters that are, still they're in the same mindset as we are, that the city is going to come back and things are going to get better, which, they will. And it's just going to be, I have a feeling come January, things are going to start to pick up. I'm
a big believer that Q1 is going to be one of the best first quarters ever. We're going to have this clip so I can say it again, that I was right on it. But what about pricing? Do you think pricing is going to drop?
I think it already is. And it probably will until the end of the year, and then hopefully by January, when things start to clear up, it will start to kind of level out again.
So one of the big things I keep telling people is that, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of places that are selling for some under market value, so prices are coming down. But heading into this, July was the best July of all time, and prices were up in the high rise market about 2% on average. Okay. What we're seeing, and what you talked about in the beginning, is that are you priced right? What I'm seeing is a lot of people. The highest comp ever is 600,000, and everybody's asking 650. and then you see them drop to 6.25, then 6.15, then 600, and the buyer's like, well, man, prices are really come down. It's like, well, they're now priced at market, right?
Yeah, but the problem with that is the buyers are seeing that happening, and then they just want to wait for it to keep
Correct.
coming down, down, down. So actually, you're hurting yourself by pricing high and not
Totally
pricing
agree.
it correctly to begin with.
But my point is, year over year, 2020, when the market's done, I think technically speaking, prices will probably only be a 1% to 2% negative.
Totally.
Overall.
Yeah.
But what about when it comes to like peak time to get a deal? Do you have an idea of when you think the peak time is going to be?
Honestly, I would say now is probably the best time because, like I said, I think things will start to pick up. Maybe even sometimes, people say like don't put your place on the market in December, November, December because of the holidays. But I've had some of the busiest November, Decembers. So maybe the end of November, people like to stay put, especially during an election time. I mean, you see the trends, and after the election's done, the market might pick back up. So I would say if you're looking for a deal, get it now.
Yeah, I mean, I always have a better December than I do August every year, and kind of like she said, I actually think the absolute best time to buy. And our next podcast, stay tuned, is going to be about this, but it's going to be from literally today to the end of October, because once the election's done with, mentality is going to change, and I think by next week, inventory is going to peak, and you're going to start seeing a lot of people who wanted to sell but didn't have to sell. And a lot of people who are like doing contingent offers in the suburbs are going to just pull their properties off the market.
Yeah.
So the inventory is going to peak, and then we're going to start seeing inventory drop back down, and people are just going to throw in the towel.
I'm already having those conversations with clients. If they're not desperate to sell right now, that maybe we take it off and put it back on maybe during December or January. I'm usually recommending clients if they're thinking of selling around this time period, any year, that January is really a good time to put your place back.
January's new April.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I got 2 emails this morning. One of them was just, Matt, please take my property off the market. So I don't know if that's getting fired, and maybe I'll get it back again. But we'll see. But I mean, it's
hopefully you'll get it back again.
We'll
January.
see. Melissa's going to be the one listing this high rise next January. But okay, so we have what we call the Fast Five, where I ask the guest 5 quick questions. So first question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I ever received. I'll keep it real estate related. It was when I first started. I was having a really hard time struggling, and my mom would just say, just keep doing it. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna be successful. And it took a couple of years, and honestly, thankfully, I listened to her, and I am where I'm at now.
Yeah, I mean, society these days is a very big instant gratification society. Everybody thinks they're going to get in real estate like $1 million a year, and like the average salary in the United States is around like 35 or 40,000 a year. So like it's just not one of those jobs. But I mean, you stuck with it, and for everybody out there, Melissa's one of the most successful agents in the country. So you got to keep grinding at it. So. What about, do you love to win or hate to lose?
I would say when I first started in real estate, I hated losing.
Yeah.
But I started to realize, like it's going to happen. It happens to the best of us. I mean, it even happens to you.
Yeah.
And I've started to really love to win. It's just like, it's a better mentality. You feel better about yourself, and it just feels really good.
That's the corporate mentality. Jamie gave me this question. That's why I looked over at her on this one. But I still hate to lose. Winning, I just think should happen. But
you've even told me that you're starting to be okay with it, because it just happens.
I still just, it keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, obviously, of course, me too. But if you really start focusing on winning and how great it feels to win, then
you look at the positive. You look at the positives of life.
Of course.
Yeah.
You got to.
Who's your biggest hero?
I would say my 92-year-old grandfather, who is still currently trading futures. He used to own a jewelry factory, and then he retired to start working even harder. And he just has always been such a positive person, and he just kept working. He even till today, like you can't talk to him from 9 to 3 because he's doing the stock market.
What a boss! Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To predict the future, so that I can answer all my clients who ask me, what's the market going to be like in January? What's the market going to be like in March?
Yeah. I mean, I just think if you focus on the patterns, you could predict it, but that's a different story. So wait a second. So are you a superhero person at all? Would you gravitate more towards Marvel or DC?
I'm not sure about that one.
Okay. Like Marvel is like Spider-Man and DC is like Batman.
Maybe Batman.
Okay. There's no DC clothes allowed in my house. Whenever my mother-in-law brings any Batman or Superman stuff, I'm like, you have to take this back.
Nothing's allowed.
It's like the White Sox against the Cubs.
I don't think I gravitate towards either.
I'm a hardcore comic book nerd, so it's okay. What makes you Chicago?
I've lived here my entire life. I grew up in the North Shore, and then I moved downtown right after college. Actually, during college, and I've always been here. So
Do you put ketchup on your hot dog?
I do. So,
Okay.
oops, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, I also put ketchup on my hot dog, but I
I
always just
actually
ask
think
that
it's
question
good,
because like my
yeah.
old man's like, you can't do that. What are you doing? So,
No.
where can people find you and what would you want to plug?
You can find me on Instagram at Melissa Siegal Group or melissasiegal.com. And thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Make sure to tune in to our next episode and subscribe to our podcast. Thanks for listening to the Matt Laricy Project. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on Instagram, and like us on Facebook.